Welcome to the Afghanistan Project Podcast. I am your host, Beth Bailey, and I'm bringing back Shawn VanDiver, president and founder of Afghan Evac, to talk about another big development in the whole post-Trump saga for Afghan allies. The recent developments in the Pacito v. Trump case that the International Refugee Assistance Project filed against the Trump administration in February on the 10th. And that has been kind of rolling through various legal processes since, with the federal government trying to say that, yes, we'll process the U.S. IRAP applicants that you make us process, but we're only going to process certain ones. And so there was a recent compliance order put out on May 5th, and Shawn's here to talk to you about it, even though I'm the one talking about it right now. So Shawn, take it away, tell us what happened, and most importantly, tell us what it means, because it's all legalese right now, and I am very confused, and I'm sure so are so many U.S. IRAP applicants right now.
Sure. So, Beth, of course, thank you so much for having me back on today to talk a little bit about this. I'll start by saying, I'm not going to speak in legalese. I'm not an immigration attorney. I'm not an attorney on this case. Afghan Evac is not a party to this case. Our interest is that it impacts Afghans, so we're out there translating the legalese for folks, but I do want to just give such a big shout out to the good folks at IRAP and the resettlement agencies that are putting themselves out there to do this, because the administration has shown that it doesn't like when people stick their head up, right? They're trying to do executive orders to take away all sorts of things from anybody who would dare deign to disagree with them. So, look, what happened is on January 20th, President Trump signed a bunch of executive orders. Executive Order 14163 in particular put a stop to all U.S. IRAP processing. That's processing, that's access to the systems called START, that's movement of Afghans or any refugees around the globe, and it's sort of anything related to refugees. They did another executive order which resulted in a stop at 14161, which resulted in a stop for, 14169, which resulted in a stop for foreign aid. Foreign aid pays for resettlement support here. So all of that got temporarily paused. Now it's permanently canceled because they canceled all of the contracts. Now, in the middle of all of this, IRAP and a few individuals and a few resettlement agencies filed a suit, Pacito versus Trump. They filed it in the great state of Washington, and over the course of the last few months, there's been several orders where a federal judge, and keep in mind, the way that our government works, the way the United States government works, is you've got three co-equal, that's C-O-E-Q-U-A-L, co-equal, look it up in a dictionary if you have a hard time understanding that, branches of government. That means that there is a legislative branch who writes the laws. It's often imperfect. Those folks are elected by the people, government by the people, for the people, right? We have a representative democracy, representative republic here. So legislative branch, that's Congress. And at the federal level, it's Congress. At the state and local level, it's whatever your state legislature is, or your local legislature, city council. They write the laws, they make the rules. There's an executive branch that is elected by the people and for the people. Their job is to execute the policy that Congress sets. And Congress also controls the money, right? Now, there's a lot of things that the executive can do. They can sponsor legislation. They can regulate. They can do all sorts of things, but it's their job to implement the will of the people. And then there's a judicial branch. The judiciary is responsible for interpreting, based on the Constitution, the laws that Congress enacts and that the executive implements. Now, it's the judicial branch's job to decide whether or not people are following the rules, or what the rules actually say in practice. So in 4th and 5th and 6th grade, we all learned about checks and balances. We watched how a bill becomes a law. We watched, all these things. And I actually don't understand why the brains of Americans are so confused about civic education because some people believe that there's a judicial coup going on because judges have said, hey, that's not quite what this says. Now, in every presidential administration since, or before this administration, judges interpreted the law. That's their job. In this one, you've got Stephen Miller out on the internet saying, this is a judicial coup. These guys don't know what they're talking about. It's our job. We're in charge of everything. We don't have kings here in America for a good reason, and I'm not going to get into all of that. But let's bring it back to what we were talking about here. Judges, the judge in Pacito versus Trump, and various other cases have said, hey, the way that the executive orders that are coming out, or the way that this law is being implemented, is not consistent with federal law or with the Constitution. Could be either one. In the case of in this case, Pacito versus Trump, the judicial branch has said that the president just can't decide to give Congress two middle fingers, right? It said that, in fact, all of these people had been made a promise, right? The government has made a commitment. You can't pull the rug out from under them. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole history of the lawsuit. Have a lawyer that's working on it on if you want to talk about that. But what I will get into is they've gone back and forth a bunch of times. The government has not complied, so the lawyers in the case said, hey, we need the judge to enforce a compliance timeline. They went and made some arguments, and what has resulted is a compliance timeline. Now, the compliance timeline is broken down into 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, 28 days, 31 days, etc. And I'm happy to share my screen and talk through the compliance timeline if that's helpful. Beth, do you have any questions before I go into the... a new pope has been elected.
That's awesome. I know people who will be so happy about that. Before we do that, I think that we should talk about because there was waffling. We talked about, you brought up the compliance order and what's being, but there's a reason why there's the compliance order. And for one thing, the federal government only wanted to process 165 cases, right? Who had travel booked. Cases. I thought it was 165 in the court document that I was sent from individuals involved in the case. It said they wanted 165 cases, that everybody who had their travel booked within the next 2 weeks after January 20th. That was it. That was all they were going to process. Only if you had a ticket in hand for that period. And, IRAP said no. It's got to be anybody who had travel booked at all. So 12,000 refugees. And I don't think anyone knows, really, at least no one has been able to confirm it to me, exactly where those refugees are coming from. There's, obviously we know, and here, you and me are most concerned about Afghans in that refugee pipeline, just because there's a huge number of them still. But that 12,000, how many of them are Afghan? How many Afghans then are not going to be processed at all under this? Because I've talked to a couple, actually. I've got a new Reason article underway right now, and for it I talked to a few U.S. IRAP applicants who've been waiting in Pakistan for years now, and none of them had travel booked. They had heard from IOM in 2 cases that they needed to complete their cultural orientation, and that then they would get travel booked, but they hadn't done that yet. And so my question is, what can you say about who will be processed under this, and if there are efforts, before we get into the timeline and everything, are there efforts to bring the rest of those people who haven't been processed yet along?
Sure. So the who it's people who were provided with independent travel documents, and of those refugees, the number, this is what they want to see here. Hold on. I have the list. I'm looking at the order here, and it was 65 cases, not 165. I just pulled it up, but that's ridiculous, right? A 65 or 165, it doesn't matter. There are literally tens of thousands of these cases just in the case of Afghans, and that's just, it's unconscionable. It's actually crazy. Okay, I'm pulling up the who right now. I want to get it exactly right.
160 is what I have.
Huh.
Courthouse News Service said 160 it identified as excluded from the suspension on its own. I think you're referring to a different group, because I've heard of that grouping too, where like the 65 to 70 people that they were identifying personally. But I think this was literally a timeline-based identification, where if you had that travel, I don't think it was the people that they're actively attempting to save that I've heard about. Like, I think that's the two lines of things that we're identifying. I would love to see what you're talking about, though, and I can provide all that in the notes for people too, so they can do their own research and see.
It's the
that'd be great.
Compliance, the joint compliance, or the joint status report. All right, now we're ready. All right, so look, here are the things that people have to be a part of this group. They have to have an approved case. They have to have received the information from USCIS that their case has been approved. They have to have travel clearance and confirmed travel plans by January 20th. Now, there may be some that didn't know that they had confirmed travel plans. Maybe they didn't know that there was a flight booked for them. But the reality is that for these folks, the government has got to, according to this, the government is trying to push back. So we've still got several weeks before they can hear this thing. But the government has to restart their travel, resettlement, and benefits processes, right? The court rejected the government's narrow interpretation of travel plans, which means that it includes both IOM facilitated and self-booked travel, regardless of the departure date. It has to have been booked by January 20th, but the departure date doesn't matter. The other thing about this is the government's going to have to is now required to identify and quantify how many individuals this impacts. And that's what I was looking at earlier. I want to tell you like what that looks like, right? The reporting requirement is it's going to be they have to report the total number of injunction-protected refugees, a high-level overview of the countries or regions in which the injunction-protected refugees are located, as well as which RSCs they worked with to receive conditional approval and travel documents. They also need to identify the number of refugees admitted monthly to the U.S. in August, September, October, November, December, and January.
Is that, can I pause for a second, is that so that they can show that they're actually, like, this is what the Biden administration was capable of doing, and we know that...
It shows what's feasible. It's meant to show as a reference, as a control, for what is feasible admission rates under the status quo.
Yeah.
Right?
Because that's one of the things they keep saying is that they can't possibly do this, and it would just be impossible.
That's right. After the 28-day compliance schedule outlined above, and submitting the final report on day 31, defendants are going to have to submit weekly reports to the court detailing action items taken since the last report to comply with the court's injunctions. So they want weekly reports on this, right? That report has to identify the number of injunction-protected refugees, and it's going to be broken down by I-590 and I-730 refugees. All right. In that, it'll be broken down by I-590 and I-730 refugees who in that week received independent travel documents, and of those refugees, the number admitted to the United States, how many had travel facilitated by IOM, and how many of those folks were admitted to the United States, how many were scheduled for medical exams, how many medical exam results were received, and how many received renewed security authorizations. Also, it has to provide an overview of the cities and states where they've been resettled, and which R&P service agencies were responsible for them. So, I mean, it's very prescriptive, right? Are you ready to talk through the timeline?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we've got the compliance timeline. This is available on our social media. You can look at... I hope that your viewers can see it. If not, go check out our social media. I will put this up on afghanevac.org/timeline or afghanevac.org/Pacito timeline. We'll just call it timeline. I just decided to do that now. I haven't put it up yet. So we'll call it timeline. Folks, you can go and visit this. If you can't see it, if you're just listening via audio, go check out afghanevac.org/timeline. You can see that by May 12th, which is 4 days from now, day 7, The government must resume refugee case processing at all levels, including at U.S. embassies, lift all admission suspensions for individuals protected under the injunction, reinstate funding and systems access, and RSC agreements. They're going to begin facilitating travel for injunction-protected refugees with unexpired medical and security clearances, and submit a plan to renew expired clearances. They need to provide case-level updates to plaintiffs. So every plaintiff should be notified. Everybody who's a named plaintiff should be notified on their cases.
Does that mean, hold on, Shawn, can we talk about that? Does that mean that people, whether or not they are qualified, they will get an email?
No. It means
just the people who are qualified.
Plaintiff. Yeah.
Okay. Oh. Okay, named plaintiff, and as in, like, if you're Pacito or somebody who is, like, named in...
So, yes.
Right.
But others will get notified later on, and you'll see that.
Okay.
They have to submit a compliance report 3 days later, May 15th, which is 7 days from now, right? So then, by May 19th, day 14, the government has to notify all injunction protected refugees that their cases are moving again, restore funding and provide updated guidance to all RSCs, resume IOM facilitated travel and medical exams, allow and support independently arranged travel and medical exams, explicitly inform eligible refugees that independent travel remains a valid option. So everybody who's eligible should get that.
Okay.
And notify all injunction protected refugees that their cases are moving again, right? So everybody who's impacted should be notified by
May 19th. Good.
With the compliance report due May 22nd. Now, what I would expect is more fuckery. They do not want to do this. I'm done pretending like maybe it was a mistake. It may have been a mistake in the initial executive orders, but now they know, and it's not a mistake. So if you know somebody in the administration, call them and tell them to stop fucking around. This is not a game, and if you care about these people, don't let your political views get in the way of this. Good or bad, right? By May 20, for example, I'm a Democrat. I will be celebrating as these dates are met. I'll be thanking the administration. We'll be celebrating any progress on this, just like we did in the last administration. Also, in the last administration, I had the courage to step into the White House, the Oval Office, Roosevelt Room, the Pentagon, the State Department, put my finger in their faces and say, hey, you're messing this up. If you have that access, you are obligated by honor, courage, and commitment to do that sort of thing. Get out there. Don't stand on the sidelines. Don't be a baby. By May 26th, 2025, day 21, the government must resume full RMP services, including housing, job training, case management, and access to benefits. That's resettlement, right? That's meeting somebody at the airport. That's all of that. They must reinstate any benefits cut due to the executive order related pause. And they must assign reception placement agencies to refugees who entered independently after the injunction went into effect. We hope and expect that this will impact SIVs, but we're not sure. And if the government gets to decide, we expect that they'll decide the least helpful option. But if we all make our voices heard, if everybody links arms in a nonpartisan way and just says, hey, this has to happen too, then I think we can make that happen. That compliance report will be due by the end of the month, May 29th. Now, by June 2nd, day 28th, if all resettlement support centers are not yet reopened, refugee support centers, the government must establish alternate processing channels for eligible refugees outside of active RSC jurisdictions. So they have to come up with an option, right? That's a month. That's plenty of time. We can figure that out in a day. Compliance report on that is due by June 5th, 2025. Now, by June 5th, day 31, all steps outlined in the order must be completed. The deadline also triggers the start of ongoing compliance reporting. The first weekly report is due by June 12th, 2025, and every 7 days thereafter. Now, what's exciting about this? What's exciting about this is all going to be public. So we're just going to put it out, right? It's going to be filed by the courts. Everybody gets to know about this, and there's no national security reason why this has to be secret, right? Now, there have been in the past national security reasons why we keep things quiet. But there's no reason now, and everybody listening to this should know that what we understand is that the flights are not in danger. The flights are good. They can keep going. This is a choice by the United States government to stop the relocation of our allies. Additional first report requirements. So by May 15th, 7 days from now, we should know how many injunction protected refugees they are, including a geographic breakdown by country and RSC, and monthly admission figures for U.S. RAP by August 2024 through January 2025. So, are we excited? Where'd you go?
I'm still here.
Good. Okay, I found
Did I disappear?
I just couldn't see you on my screen anymore. So, this is great, right? This is really, really, really impactful and important. And this court order is forcing the administration to do the right thing. What we hope is that they'll see that this works well and that this population of folks is special and does in fact deserve our help. And man, I would really like to see some of these resources that are being freed up to be leveraged against this problem set. We were getting 5,000 Afghans a month out. What if we got 10,000 a month out? What if we got 15,000 a month out? We could have, there's 250,000 Afghans who still need to come here. If we got 10,000 Afghans out a month, it's 25 months, right? It's 2 years. We'd be done. By the end of President Trump's term, we'd be done. President Trump would be a hero to Afghans, to veterans, and to every American who cares about this. He would eat Joe Biden's lunch on this issue. Instead, what's happening right now is somehow the Trump administration has made Joe Biden a hero to veterans and Afghans. Joe Biden is running circles around the Trump administration on Afghanistan, and he doesn't even give a shit about it. He didn't even try. He didn't want to do it. People around him wanted to do it, and they did a good job. But, does President Trump want his legacy to be that Joe Biden ate his lunch on standing by our wartime allies? I don't think so. And it doesn't have to be that way. I don't want that. I'm a Democrat, and I don't want that. But what are we doing here? This is a system that was working, and now, luckily, we have the folks at IRAP and others who are filing in the cases of TPS, in the cases of parole, in other cases. If we didn't have those folks, we know that Stephen Miller doesn't care about this. And somehow, the president is abdicating his relationship with veterans to Stephen Miller, which I don't understand. I really don't understand. I know that National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, or former National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, he got fired a couple weeks ago. A promotion to, it's not a promotion to go from National Security Advisor, the highest national security position in our government, to ambassador to the UN. That the U.S., the current U.S. government has made it pretty clear that they're not really all that interested in UN or NATO or things like that. So, I don't know. I hope to see former National Security Advisor Mike Waltz speak about this. I know that I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that he gets asked questions about this during his confirmation hearing. And I hope he has good answers. I want to know, what was he doing on the inside to push for this? And I think, we got to ask folks to be courageous and speak up. And, efforts to get, nobody ever gets anything done by sitting on the sidelines. And, hoping. Hope is not a strategy, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's my monologue for today.
Yes, it's, I'm very glad that this has been done. Now we have to see if it gets followed through upon. I hope that it does, and that compliance is a thing that happens.
Well, I'll tell you, I talked to Senator Langford this weekend. We talked about this at length. He indicated support for our wartime allies. He also said he's got a decent relationship with Stephen Miller, and he said he'd reach out to him. So, look, we know that this has broad bipartisan support. We know that because the voting record from last Congress shows that these folks have supported this. We know that lots of members of Congress have written letters. We know that, we know there's one guy and the acolytes of one guy in the way of this. And I like, look, it's not a partisan statement to speak facts about who's in the way. I want to make it very clear for your listeners. There's been accusations that we're very partisan. We're just not. Like, Jack McCain and I just put out a video on Monday. And Jack and I couldn't be more different, right? He's Republican royalty. I'm a Democratic nobody. He's an officer. I'm enlisted. He's a helicopter pilot. My job in the Navy was to shoot things out of the sky. And we are like this on this. And he said, Congress needs to do their job. Congress has failed. The executive branch has failed. It's a broad bipartisan tradition now of failing our wartime allies. And if he can have the courage to step up and say something, I want to challenge all of your listeners to get out there and say something. Couch it however you want to. But people need to know that this is a failure, that we have an opportunity to fix this, and President Trump could be a hero on this issue.
Yeah.
Let's be really careful about this. And if you're an Afghan listening to this looking for answers, the federal government's already filed to disagree with this, so that
right.
Those deadlines could get pushed. And if you're not protected by this, you probably won't receive a notice. So stay tuned to the news, stay tuned to our social media, stay tuned to Beth's podcast to find out, have the notices gone out? And we'll be noisy about it. We're not trying to hide anything. We want to make sure that you know what you can do to get on with your life, whether your life is going to continue here or it's going to be a little longer before you can get here. And just know, this is another thing that Jack said, we stand with you. We care about you. We don't want you to be stuck in limbo. That's why we're being so noisy about this. For Afghan evac, Afghans are our primary constituency. We put a bunch of stuff out there because I don't care what the norm is. I don't care that, somebody in another agency or organization might need the federal government for X or Y. All we do is focus on our wartime allies. And the number one priority for us is reducing uncertainty, right? You deserve to know what comes next, what's happening now, and what's already happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially right now. I mean, I feel so much for U.S. RAP folks who've been waiting in Pakistan, especially now. You've got the, Indian strikes on Pakistan and large blackouts across the country. And you've got, I've heard from at least one Afghan who tells me he's a P2 applicant who was deported to Afghanistan already. And I can't verify that with any, documentation, because I'm pretty sure you don't just get like a, we deported you letter. Or if there is one, I didn't see it. But, it's a concerning time. It's been a concerning time for 3 years of not being able to work, not being able to send your kids to public school, not being able to, all these things. There's supposed to be UNHCR schools, but I can't tell you how many Afghans have come to me and said they can't get the UNHCR to even acknowledge them. So it's been a horrible time, and I would never diminish that. I would never, I'm so sad that it continues to be so devastating, and we all hope that there's good news for U.S. RAP applicants soon. This is really promising, and yeah, Shawn, I really appreciate you coming on to talk about this. Is there anything else happening these days that, anything that about like stateside deportations that people should be aware of or anything like that?
There's a lot of confusing language out there, right? So like some people who arrived on parole, people are receiving notices from CBP now that like, hey, I hope you had a good time in the U.S., but you have to leave within the next 10 days because that's when your parole ends. That doesn't count. It doesn't matter if you get those if you've already filed for asylum and have a green card application in. But always, always, always talk to an immigration attorney. You can go to afghanevac.org/resources, click on the legal thing, go down, look at AILA. They can help you navigate this. I do have an update on numbers if you want an update on the Enduring Welcome pipeline and the SIV pipeline.
Sounds good.
All right, I'm going to give exact numbers here because the State Department has decided that they're not going to share any numbers with anybody. So I have numbers, and Congress, again, co-equal, has not been given these numbers. I gave it to a bunch of offices yesterday, and we're going to keep pushing these numbers out. And if you're wondering why the numbers are going up on Enduring Welcome, it's because CARE, the good staff at CARE, as skeleton crew as they are, is still working to process folks to get to a travel-ready state. So the first numbers I'll go through, I'm going to go through the SIV pipeline first. And this is globally, not just CARE. There are 163,000 applicants with chief of mission approval. Now, that sounds like a big number from the 10,000 visas we have remaining, right? So, let me break it down a little bit for you. That's 31,000 principal applicants and about 132,000 family members. So, 4.5 is the math there. But Congress, you can't blame the administration. You can't blame this Congress because the last Congress didn't do it either. We need more visas. Now, if they bring ACIV staff down, which they will obviously have to do if they cut the budget by 85%, these numbers will stop going up because right now ACIV is adjudicating about 1,000 cases a week, of which 30% are getting approved. Now, if you were wondering, if your viewers are wondering how many SIVs have been issued since September 1st, 2021, I have the exact number. There's been a lot of bullshit out there, but I have the exact number right now. So get ready, Beth. 45,141, which is composed of 9,640 principals and 35,501 derivatives. It's not that many,
That's
right?
it?
That's
yeah,
it.
that's a very small number.
Yep.
So what happens with, you've got 30K COM approved, but 12,000 left? Like, what the hell are they doing? How are they? Is it just first to the finish line?
It's left, yeah. Unless Congress approves more.
And then just everybody else just sits and waits and hopes that they approve more. I mean, it's literally, they're just going to, the first come, first serve. Okay.
Yeah. And like, can you get out of the country? Can you afford housing here? Like, it's a really shitty situation these folks have been put in. So let's talk about how many are pre-con. There's about 65,000 principal applications in at the National Visa Center. Now, not all of those will get through. Not all of those will get sent on to COM, right? But at COM, there's 49,000. So if you apply math to it, there's 30% of those will get through. Let me do some math here on my phone real quick. I work in advocacy because I'm not good at math. So 14,621 is probably how many more principal applicants we need. So we need about 50,000. We'll call it 50,000 total. So we need about 40,000 additional SIV principal applicant visas allocated. I'd say 50,000 just to be safe. Now, if you're wondering how many are at NVC documents not complete, this is after Chief of Mission approval. There are 8,160 principal applicant applications at NVC pending approval, with 30,000 derivatives. Now there are, in the interview ready bucket, we have 22,919 interview ready to rock, right?
20,919.
These numbers all roll up into the
30K that you were, yeah.
So remember, there's 31,000 COM approved principals. The way that number breaks down is that there's 20,000 who have their documents complete pending interview. That's 20,000 Afghans in Afghanistan, principal applicants. So 112,000 in Afghanistan who are ready to go, or somewhere around the world ready to go. 112,000. Interviewed and in process, there's 11,731. So of the people that have gone to a third country and gotten an interview, and it's just in process, right? Administrative processing or whatever they're looking at it. There's 11,731. Total, approved, is 162,556, right? That's, again, 31,079 principals, 132,000 derivatives. That's crazy. So I'm going to give a high-level number for, as of May 1st, there are 180 U.S. citizens in Afghanistan. And this is just in Afghanistan. 180 U.S. citizens, 8,000 interview-ready U.S. citizen family members, 213 LPRs, with 1,069 interview-ready LPR family members, 127,617 SIV applicant interview-ready, including derivatives, 2,800 family of unaccompanied children. Other family reunification is 11,000 or 12,000, and then about 60,000 refugees in Afghanistan alone. That's the Enduring Welcome Pipeline. Now, around the world, in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. We'll call it 90 countries is what I had before. I had to have to count this up again. There are 22,000 SIVs, 9,000 IVs, and 24,000 refugees. In Pakistan alone, there's 9,000 SIVs, 6,000 IVs, and 12,000 refugees. A little over 12,000 refugees. It's crazy. Fucking crazy. So, 90 countries around the world, about 55,000 Afghans outside of Afghanistan, and
with pathways to here. That's important to mention because there are like probably hundreds of thousands of Afghans displaced around the world right now because of and it's not just, everybody's talking about Pakistan's deportations. Iran has also been deporting huge numbers of Afghans lately. IOM is begging people to stop doing that because
Iran is not,
they can't be reabsorbed.
Iran's not on this list because we don't have diplomatic relations with them, right?
Right. So you can't go there and get your U.S. RAP processed.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've heard it's deleterious to your case in general if you have traveled through or to Iran. So not a good plan. Don't do it. Iran is a terrible regime. Stay away.
All right. So
cool.
That's it. That's what I've got for you. You're the first person that I've gone through. I mean, I've given this to other reporters, but you're the first person that I've gone line by line through. And for folks wondering why I'm doing that, it's because people deserve to know. We can't be afraid of quote-unquote big numbers. What I was hearing from the same people who were worried about the border was that we were having 25,000 people a week come to the border. 25,000 people a day, rather, come to the border. In some cases, more. So 10 days at the border would get us where we need to go? Okay, fucking great. Welcome to America.
Yeah. Well, and these are vetted individuals. Let's talk about that difference too. These are people who have been vetted, and it's very hard to discern whether someone is looking genuinely for asylum or whether, they are looking for opportunity, right? I mean, I'm not sitting here trying to say that it's my job to discern that. I'm just saying it is a difficult thing to discern. I don't think there should be any question, and there's just this constant question now in the new administration of whether they're under real threat in Afghanistan, and I just want to send them every single update that I see from a former, military individual who was slaughtered in Afghanistan, that in fact, yes, they are under threat. There's a woman whose story is in the article I'm working on for a reason. And when she fled to Pakistan because she was at incredible risk, they tortured her brother. It's just, this is not going to stop. And if you think that the Taliban are rational actors, look at how much they have fought to keep women under their boots.
Yeah.
And they won't, they desperately want this international recognition, but they are not willing to let women have their rights to get that recognition. And they don't care that, everyone knows what they're doing to their former enemies and current enemies. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. But thank you so much, Shawn. It's been great to hear about this progress. IRAP is doing an incredible job. And I look forward to hearing more about how this plays out and, all of these numbers. See if they change, if they go down, hopefully, and we get some hope for our allies.
Let's hope. Thank you so much. It was really, really lovely being here today. Beth, I think advocates and Afghans owe you a debt of gratitude for how on this you've been, keeping this in the news, making sure that Fox News and Reason and other outlets are hearing this story. You've done such incredible work, and we're really grateful for you. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, I'm happy to do it. I don't know where else I would be right now. I'd be angry and on the sidelines. So it's much better to be angry and in the fight than angry and on the sidelines. That's what I've learned. I will tell that to anybody any day of the week. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. Tasha Kaur, hope to see you again soon with less urgent topics.